What's up, guys?
No.
Welcome. No?
So cooked.
Welcome to Chim'Di Talk.
What's going on?
All the credits.
I just wanna talk with my brothers. Is that too much to ask? Might as well look sharp, cause I'm doing it too. Trish and talk. Trish and talk. Trish and talk. I wanna know.
Okay, we're going to make a start now. Thank you very much for coming here this evening. It's a part of a touch of black health. It's been going on all week. It will be continuing, I think, until the 1st of November. And it's an opportunity to celebrate and to consider and discuss many aspects of black health. And back in the summer, Chim contacted SACMA and said, it would be great to actually have a chat with you about some things we're developing for the autumn. Met up with her and she came up with the idea of a live podcast on financial health. When she asked me about it, or sort of said to me, you'd be up for that, wouldn't you? I said, well, I know nothing at all about financial health. And actually, in many respects, that response really is a sort of like underpinning of much of what we want to do today, which is to actually talk about financial health, explore some of the themes around financial health, and all the time try and keep in mind how important an understanding and the way in which we approach money and finances plays out in terms of our mental health. And I can see some of the guys there, some of the women there of big sports people. I was watching this evening or this afternoon that programme about football's financial scandal. And the names there, you know, Brian Deane, who played for Sheffield United, Danny and Ron Wallace, all these characters there that they had a very difficult time, our experience at a very difficult time. And they were talking there about every day, they've always got this cloud hanging over them now. With that cloud, the fact that they feel nearly sort of like ashamed, they feel humiliated, it's affecting their mental health in such a deep way. And we know that's how, when we have problems, and financial problems are one of those which actually can really, really affect us badly, that we need to actually address it as best as we can. And that's one of the reasons why we've asked David and we've asked yourself, Jorome, to come along and join our conversation about financial health. So please come and join us. I'll let Lungani just introduce Trims and Talks.
I'll use this one. For us, I mean, Trims and Talk, for those who have been following us, it's literally a podcast around the conversations that men have. The idea was to kind of use the barber shop as a proxy to, you know, the conversations that we have when we just want to have a good gripe about life. And some of us who are lucky, we usually have those conversations in the sauna. I mean, like Jorome will attest to that because we go to the same gym and we have these very, I'll say sometimes it's those uncomfortable conversations that as men we need to have pertaining to our health, pertaining how we do life. Because unfortunately life doesn't come with a manual. So we just make it up as we go along. And sometimes I think the conversations that we have as men do help in terms of how we process and in terms of how we deal with things. So Trims and Talk is that. I say it's our service to the community in terms of creating a platform for men and women to have that conversation about doing life better. And
Yeah. Well, let's start then. growing up and money. What was it for you?
Growing up for me, it was, at the time, it was a single mom who was working 2 jobs. Obviously a lot of responsibility raising 3 children on her own. But it's always that same saying that we would always get, money doesn't grow on trees. And I think when you hear it consistently as a child growing up, you start to sort of believe it. You start to believe money is limited. And I remember for me, sometimes it was asking for little things like a £5 toy. And it wasn't because my mum couldn't afford it, it's because she knew her responsibilities were elsewhere. And I think for us, especially for like my brother and myself, we didn't follow that sort of trend. We grew up knowing there was over accessibilities with finances. We knew there was opportunities to have the resources, have the financial ability to go and do the things we wanted to do. So yes, I think as a kid it was growing up with, let's call it limitations, but as an adult it sort of maybe unlocked something in my brain where it was, I don't want that, I want more. So I've always looked for how do I get more.
Okay. David, you can.
Yeah, for me, I grew up one of 8 in Burngreave, not far away, and so obviously, as this, with that number and 8 kids, mum and dad, life was not easy in the 70s and 60s. So, but we always felt that we had enough as a kid growing up. So I never ever felt like I was deprived of anything, because my mum and dad, they obviously worked hard, but we didn't have excessive expectations of what was out there, because my world was Burngreave. So I was just like everybody else in the Burngreave. So to me, money was never a big deal growing up. We didn't have excessive things. I didn't go on holiday anywhere. The local church was once a year. We'd go to seasides, and that was it really. So I had no idea really, but I didn't feel poor. I must admit, I didn't feel poor. So that was it. So money was not a big deal at the time. I always had enough, so I was quite happy, to be honest with you.
I mean, Jorome, you said about your mum there and doing 2 jobs. Did you have a sense that money was, clearly a very precious thing?
Again, I think because of my mum's generation, it was work. It was work. Let's pay the mortgage, get it paid off. Work, work, work. But like David said, I never felt poor. I always had what I needed. But I think growing up, I had not an expectation, but I had the factor in my head of certain things we might not get. Not because it wasn't affordable, just because I feel like my mum had a lot of responsibility, and maybe her upbringing was that of don't overspend on money. Don't. Let's keep it.
Because I know when we were talking yesterday, David, we were talking about growing up being a teenager, and we were talking about football boots.
Yes.
Right. And at the time, back in the 70s, Beckenbauer boots, Adidas Beckenbauer, Samba, the Puma boots, etc.
Yes.
You couldn't be going to your parents and say to your mum, look, I want a pair of the fanciest boots out.
No.
Because you knew you couldn't even ask for them.
That's right. So in fact, my first pair, I didn't have boots. I was a football player, but I would borrow boots from my friends. And there's one particular guy, I would go to his house, he'd play on the Saturday, I'd go to his house and borrow his boots. And the only stipulation was, can you bring, his name's Rudy Willis, and he'd say, can you bring them back the next morning clean? And he was, I didn't realise at the time, but Rudy was the only boy in his family. So his parents looked after him really well, but I would have to go and borrow his boots. And I've got great memories of Rudy, and very close. And so that's the state of where I was.
Did you clean his boots then?
I cleaned his boots meticulously and gave them back to him the next day, because he looked after me, to be honest with you. Yeah. So that's how poor, but I didn't have the luxuries. I couldn't go to my parents and say, can you go and buy me the latest boots? They would say, why? And all that. They'd give me a lecture. But so that was never on the cards. Yeah. So, yeah.
I think, it's like listening to you guys, and I'm thinking my experience was completely different, because for starters, I was barefoot, You know what I'm saying? So there was never, there was never, there never was that, kind of those trappings, even money. The concept of money, I don't think I ever knew money until probably I must have been in my teens. You know what I'm saying? We were raised in the country, so everything that you had was grown.
Yes.
You see what I mean? That kind of thing. So you never had to worry about money. So I constantly say that the worst thing that ever happened to me was being moved from my grandparents' homestead to go live with my parents. You see what I'm saying? Because I think that's when when you're in the city and you're having to see other people wearing trainers, you're like, this is different. So for us, we got anything that was bought was at Christmas.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
But you said something to me yesterday, David, which is about comparison. I can't remember what the quote was.
Yeah, I've always had this attitude that I never compared myself to anyone else. I understood very early on that my life was my journey and it wasn't anybody else's journey. So the saying is, comparison is the thief of joy. And it steals from you if you compare yourself constantly with other people, which is why I think there's lots of issues today, because people always compare themselves to other people, and yet it's your journey. But it's difficult with social media.
You can see more, can't you?
Sorry?
You said about Burngreave, when you've got a relatively small world,
Yes.
What you see is just a little bit step above you. Whereas
Yes.
today you can see so much above you, can't
Yeah,
you?
you can-
And you can aspire or whatever it is.
Well, they aspire, yes, but for most people, it's a dream too far, because a lot of what they see on social media, first of all, I think it's made up, a lot of it, but it's not accessible to them because they live in Sheffield and they're seeing people in, Las Vegas on Rodeo Drive, and it just feels like that it can, again, back to mental health, that can make someone feel inadequate if you've seen these images of success and excess, and suddenly I'm here, but I'm in my bedroom, and I think it has a detrimental effect, a big detriment. And it's hard to stop, by the way, I guess so. But that's what I see.
My question is, who were around, when you were growing up, who were around who you used as reference in terms of, I'll say, doing well?
Me doing well. My family, first of all. I have a brother who's a doctor. My brother was a football player. All my family, they worked. So that was my reference points. It wasn't people necessarily outside. So I had people around me who were doing well. My neighbour, Cess, I remember Cess, he became a biochemist. My school friends, my best friend became chief accountant at River Island. So I had all the kind of people around me who were inspiring me closely. So I didn't go outside Burngreave necessarily until I was mainly at 19. I didn't really go outside. I went to Exall Road, and then went to Hunter's Bar from Burngreave. So I had a really tight knit, but the people around me, they were succeeding as well, So I was quite comfortable with that.
And I know with you, Jorome, you've spoken about your mom. When is the first thing where you thought, let me just go and make my own?
So mine was my brother. So he was the first person in the family to, let's say, maybe break the family curse of just finances. No one in my family had really excelled. They'd just done normal day-to-day jobs. They were comfy. My brother was the first person who went and did something. So he was 18, footballer, got bought to the Premier League for £1 million. Now, I was 13, so I've seen it. It's the first person I've ever seen do it anywhere close to me. This was someone I used to share a bedroom with. So I've watched him now I'm seeing his lifestyle. I'm seeing him on the TV. I'm seeing him driving nice cars. So as a younger brother, he was always someone I looked up to anyway. So in my head, I thought, I can do that as well. I'm going to do that. Now, in terms of career, I always thought it's going to be football. It wasn't. It was, doing what I do now in insurance. But that was my first feel of what money really can be. He was going on holidays, he was driving nice cars, living in really nice parts of Manchester. The first time I'd ever seen it, and I think that for me was where I said, right, I can do this too, and that was where I was aiming. I was following in his steps.
Was, you know, what you saw there, what did you see? Did you see the sense of the luxuries, or did you see a sort of like, I don't know, the work behind it? Because again, when you're young, I mean, I know when I was young, I used to see sort of different characters out on the street. There were some guys who seemed to be, they had the cars, they got the girls, they had the flash clothes, and there were other guys there who were just going to work.
Yeah.
And the going to work didn't look that exciting, especially when you went and saw where your dad worked, and you went there, you saw where your dad worked, and you sort of said to yourself, he's working here, and he's coming home every weekend, and he's struggling to go out on a Saturday night, and then he's getting miserable on a Sunday evening because he's got to go work again, and there's that sort of like treadmill of work, and yet some others seem to have it different.
Yeah, exactly. So, like I said at the start, my mum was working 2 jobs, raising 3 children. She had money to give us what we needed, but it wasn't just free. We weren't just going on flashy holidays. It was never that. The relationship with my dad was, he was in a mindset where he came from Jamaica, very difficult upbringing. So money for him was very tight to his, very close to his chest. So as kids, he wasn't providing for us the way we needed him to. So I always grew up thinking, Dad's never got any money. Would never ask him for anything because he would never give it. And I remember again when I was 13, brother got signed to a new club, and I remember looking on Sky Sports and it said Jorome Slew, Blackburn Rovers, £1 million. I was like, £1 million. And then, I kid you not, it was, you know, as you will know, the transfer market is quick. So 1 minute he was in the house on Gleedless, next minute he's driving over to Blackburn to sign a £1 million contract. And literally within 24 hours, his life had changed. And I think that for the whole family, again, was something very surreal. Again, first person to really go and do something. So again, that for me was very eye-opening.
And with that, because I mean, I started, in a sense, this evening talking about those footballers. And one of the things they were saying about the footballers is that these are young men who probably are not very financially literate, and they talk about you learn about money from your upbringing, and then maybe school. And we know school doesn't give you financial literacy, and for many of us, what we knew about money was relatively limited. So if you suddenly get a big pot of money, it's going to be quite a difficult one to actually manage.
No, 100%. And you know, my brother is an exact example of that. You know, he didn't do great in school, but he always knew football was his way out. And again, he got the money, but he didn't have the, the education to keep it. Now, he's done fine now, because he eventually did start investing. But for the first couple of years, when he's getting those big paychecks, it's just going on things that he didn't need to go on.
But when we're young, I mean, we talked before, haven't we, David, about when you're young, you get your first job, you get a bit of money in your back pocket there. You do want to be a little bit flashy, don't you?
I remember when I first came into a little bit of success, I had a job. I started my career as this commission-only salesperson, and the company was based in York, other side of York, and I would watch and see my manager, the bosses, driving around in, you might not know, I don't know if you know a car called the Morgan, and he'd be driving the Morgan with a flat cap, and he'd say, "Morning, David, morning." And I had this young kid at 19 thinking, God, he looks cool, but what is that? And so I don't know if you've seen the film Trading Places. And I was the Eddie Murphy character in that film with these rich guys. And so I started to see money when I was 19, 20, 21. I mean, lots of money. I didn't understand it at the time, but when you come outside of Burngreave and you've seen beautiful environments, the countryside. In fact, I remember going with my boss to buy, long story short, but in 1982 they bought me a BMW, brand new, and I went with him to buy the car, and I watched him hand over a cheque for, I think it was £11,000, and he said, "Here's the keys for the car," and I drove back to my house on Winkerbank, and you know, that car cost more than the house I'd bought. Yeah. So I started to see, and I was nervous driving onto the street, thinking that what people are going to think, how they're going to be, how am I going to be perceived. And eventually you start to understand that becomes normal. You're always very nervous, but you start to see you start to do things at a young age outside of your environment, and start going to London and Manchester and Liverpool and Coventry, and you're starting to see a different world. It begins to open up for you. For me, luckily, it was a very young age, and so that's what started to change my perception. And what I think is great about this is, I think as a community, I grew up in church till I was 16, and in the Bible they talked about the love of money. Sorry, money is the root of all evil. Well, I don't believe that, and the quote is actually the love of money is the root of all evil, not money. So as a community, we grow up with this mentality that we don't talk about it, we don't mention it. No, but yet that's the very thing we've got to work for. And so I think I'm really pleased that we're doing this conversation, because it's a conversation I've wanted to have for 20, 30 years, to be honest with you, when actually, if we don't understand it and we don't talk about it, we're going to get, as a community, we're going to get so left behind, which we're seeing daily. And if we don't understand it and do our own research and reading, we're going to get situations like footballers, Brian and all those guys, and Michael Thomas, where they don't understand money, because it becomes this thing that it does it to them rather than them utilising what they've got to look after their families, not just for that family, but for generations. And so you see other communities doing this. And so unless we start to understand it, really understand it, then I think it's, we're doing this, all of us are doing a disservice to our generations who are yet to be born, if we don't understand it now. So it's really important, I think, that we're taking this opportunity to talk about it.
But in some ways, we look back on things. Our parents they come over 50s and 60s from the Caribbean background, and I won't say they were thankful, but they get a job, and you keep that job, and you do it week in, week out, and you're going to pay your rent, and then when you put a bit of money together there, you put a deposit down on a house, you have your little old house there, you raise your family there. There wasn't much space, was there, really, to be thinking about money in that strategic way.
I agree.
Which can make something more, and you didn't see anyone else doing it either.
Yeah, I think that's correct, absolutely correct. But I think the other communities have come, understood the assignment, and got on with it. Our parents did do that. But I think there came a point when they bought properties that the money and the tangibility of money became more important than having the roof over their head. So people sold out. There are areas now in England, in Sheffield, in Manchester, in Leeds, where we had houses, we had property. I go to London. I was in London. I've pretty much been in London for 40 years. In Brixton, there were houses, we owned streets and literally everywhere. We sold those houses, and they moved us to outside of London into Croydon and really way out, whereas other people take over those communities and those areas, and those houses are worth millions, literally. It doesn't matter where you are, that's the asset that keeps the generations intact, if we understand how to utilise it, which is the key.
Well, don't you think that, especially pertaining to everything you have spoken about, from property to business to even just financial, obviously, education, we always leave it to somebody else to actually create the narrative in terms of how to handle it. So as a result, we don't understand it.
I think you can't always blame everyone else. We've got to do the work ourselves as well. I think, especially in today's situation, the things are accessible. They say, if you want to keep anything from black people, put in a book, right? And sometimes we've got to read the book. We've got to get out and do the stuff, because we can talk about football, we can talk about this, that, and the other, but that's not going to save you. We're not footballers. Not everybody's a footballer. Not everybody's a sports person. You've got to be thinking way beyond your lifetime, and way beyond, you've got to have a long-sighted view of life, because guarantee your kids will struggle, your grandkids will struggle, in this community, in this situation, what's happening now, unless we take a real grip of understanding it, because it's not going to get any easier.
Yeah, sorry, just on that, what David said, I remember growing up and it was the same narrative of work, buy a house, live in it. And I remember I was speaking to you earlier and I never had that mindset. I never wanted to just work a 9 to 5. I never wanted to just be comfortable and buy a house. I always wanted to do more. So obviously watching like my brother go and earn a lot of money, I wanted to do that. I tried going down the football route, it didn't work. But I realised it's only a small percentage of footballers that will earn that 300 grand a week. So I eventually left because I thought, right, my journey's elsewhere, and I started looking at, I still want to earn that money, I still want to be able to leave something for my kids and invest and really expand my wealth. It's going to have to be elsewhere though. And I think a lot of people do get stuck because of what they get taught from parents of just do it this way. But that was then. Now it's very different and it's changing. I feel like you have to adapt to what's going on around you.
I think, but it's like I was asking you earlier, Don, about what is your relationship with money? Because for many of us, we chased it; it was running in the other direction, and when we actually finally managed to get a little bit, we'll hold on to it and try and hold on as long as we can. So ideas about investment, this and that. Some of us, I know personally, I'm risk averse. I'm terrified. When somebody suddenly, like sometimes we get these emails or you get the email saying, oh yeah, crypto. I have no clue what crypto is. Well, I get the concept, but there are so many things that I don't understand that pertains to money. That when I sit down with some of these guys who seem to have got their act all together, I'm just fascinated about what is your relationship with money?
I think every single person has a profile to do with money. Every single person. Some of us are frightened of spending it. Some of us let go of it easier. Some know how to get more. So everybody's got one, right? So I know my profile with money. I am free with it. It comes and it goes. And hopefully more of it comes than than it goes. So that's my profile. I understand that everybody's different. So some people have money and never spend it. Ever. They just accumulate and they die. Do you know, there's a stat there. Our community died with more money than we've ever had. Did you know that? I've spoken to an undertaker. We die with more money than we've ever had. We never spend it. Never spend it.
We want a big funeral.
We want beautiful funerals. Yeah, we want beautiful funerals. So, but there's some psychological stuff going on there as to why that happens. I'm sure we'll have questions and answers later on as to why. But there's things going on there. So some people let go. Some people don't mind, and it's just the way of the world. Not everybody can do the same thing, but some people want to just enjoy their lives. Which is fair enough.
Because somebody was saying that you usually, when somebody passes, you go and look under the mattress or on top of the...
That's where you're still putting your money.
On top, they say under the mattress, on top of the wardrobe, or there's usually like a loose floorboard in the bedroom. So that's what you say.
When my mum died, she passed on a box of pearls. They used to wear these little white pearls in the 60s, and she passed them on to me, and I just put it away to one side. And then years later, I opened it up, and there was hundreds stuck.
Oh, yeah.
So you used to just scribble the money away, which was the money which, when you went to ask her, can we go on holiday, she would actually say, life spare me, and then somewhere along the line she'd find this money, but she used to just put the money to one side, all these different places. So maybe I don't do that. But I think I am, because you talk about an attitude. I'm more towards the risk averse.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to buy a shirt, it takes me a long time to buy a shirt.
I know.
You know.
No, because that's the thing.
But so I look at young people today with all the subscriptions, etc., and I have this view which is, you know, you're earning money and you're paying out for this, you're paying out for that, you're paying out for that, and it's so easy now to spend money in a way in which, back in the day when you had some money, you had to have the physical money in your pocket. You know, you had to have you took out your £50 at the weekend, and that was your money for the week. And when you had no money, you're not going anywhere. Yeah. Whereas today, that's not the way. So you'll need to be financially literate now. It's probably more so than even then.
Yeah, I agree.
I think as someone that's younger, I think money is a very energetical thing. I think I have I have a view on it now of money's everywhere. Especially in what I do now, I see it. I'm seeing certain deals and certain people I'm working with. Money's everywhere. But again, I think it's a mindset of some people have it like it's limited, and it's not. It's not limited. It's just sometimes you limit yourself within maybe the job you do or how you view it. I think when you then see it and you put yourself around it, you then start to view it very differently. And again, for someone like myself who was just raised middle class, if we call it that, eventually when it started to come around me a bit more, and then I started looking at, well, how do I go to that place, how do I get it? I realised working the school job I had wasn't going to do that. I then started looking at, you know, football. It could have done it, but statistically it wasn't going to work for me. I got to an age, a level, I'm not going to go to the Prem anymore. How else do I get that sort of financial freedom, that relationship with money is just, it's limitless. So I think sometimes it's a mindset and it's how you view it.
Yeah. So, you know, in your position, in your job as a financial advisor now, how do you support people to, in a sense, better manage the money they've got? Because, you know, you've got to be able to manage, because if you don't manage it well, then you are going to get that situation where you've got debts, you may have to go to people you shouldn't be going to, you've got the stress levels which go with, you know, you're working or not working, but you're spending more than you actually got.
Yeah. So especially with what I do, you know, I do naturally look after a lot of athletes with, you know, their injury cover. But one of the main conversations I have with them is what happens when that money is no longer coming in. And I think, you know, I said it last week, we always think about life savings and life cover when someone's already died, instead of thinking about it before. So the conversation I have with a lot of people is, let's put £20 or £30 a month aside that's going to support your family financially. If you were to pass on, it's going to leave them 800 grand, that's going to pay off the mortgage, that's done. And then you've got 2 or 3 young children that no longer have a father, but they have the financial support that you've left them to go to college, go to university, and just live their life the way they need to rather than struggling. And I think it's a conversation that I want to have with more people, but again, it's a mindset thing. People don't want to have it.
Well, I got a health cover when I was about 40, and I can't remember how much I was paying per month. But after about 5 years or so, I started to say to myself, why am I paying this health cover and I'm well?
Yeah.
Because, you know, I'm 45 and I'm thinking I'm strong and healthy, never thinking to myself at that point, I'm going to be ill.
Yeah.
You know, I might get, you know, I'm going to get older, whatever there. So I can imagine that's quite a difficult thing for lots of people, which is, why am I taking money out of what I've got now to, in a sense, insulate myself from something which may never happen?
Yeah, of course. And as a financial advisor, I have to be honest with them. And I do say to them, you're fit and healthy now. What about when you're not? You're not going to be able to go to work. Your partner's going to have to maybe take some time off work to look after you, look after the kids. It's going to have a financial impact on them. One of the good stories that I tell people now, you might know Joe Thompson.
No.
So Joe Thompson he died a couple of months ago of cancer, and he was only 34. He was diagnosed at 24 years old, and unfortunately he had the opportunity to sign for his life cover, but he just forgot about it. He wasn't thinking. And he was a footballer, young footballer. He had 2 children at the time and a wife. He had to sell cars. And I tell this story a lot to people because all it took was for him to sign a document. But because his mind wasn't thinking of what could happen, he didn't do it. And, you know, it then led to him doing a lot of GoFundMe pages, lots of, you know, charity work to try and raise the money. And again, I tell people this, I say, well, what happens if you're in a car accident on your way home? What happens if you wake up tomorrow, go to the doctors and you're diagnosed? They don't like, and it is, I understand it's a very difficult and scary conversation to have, but if we are thinking about our families, we have to have it, because it only takes a 20-minute phone call to get something put in place that's going to help them out.
No, just on that note, I've actually used insurances over the years, and they've actually helped and saved me fortunes in many situations, whether it's my kids have been in 3, that's my wife's there, but my kids have been in 3 difficult situations, and if it wasn't for the life cover, the health cover, it would have cost me literally 50 grand at least. I've used insurances myself, and they've paid out. So I can't try to tell it. I'm not a financial advisor like Jorome is, but I tell everybody, for the minimal cost of getting insurance, it's absolutely worth it. You know, 150%. Whether it's for you or for your kids, if you leave what you leave behind, it's a must. Yeah. And in our community, it's an absolute necessity. Yeah. So he's got some work to do, because I think a lot of people would if you surveyed our community, I would say, I can't say a stat for sure, but maybe 30% have got some cover, and then whether it's critical illness, whether it's life cover, whether it's all these kinds of things.
I said it last week, not in terms of our community, but in terms of adults in the UK, it's 38%.
I would say 30 actually.
38% of adults in the UK have life insurance, 14% have critical illness, 12% have critical illness, and 14% have income protection, which is it's nowhere near enough.
But is it possible that it's the fear of, I know in our community we are very precious with our information, let alone, from health to money. When you talk to a man about his money. Yeah.
But it might also be that some people just don't have enough money to pay for those things, because again, if you're struggling week to week, then it's difficult to actually then put aside. And having said that, I'm thinking back, I remember the insurance man coming around. He's come around, and I don't know how much my mum would put, be a couple of shillings a week. Yeah. But there was always an insurance man every week came around, and they'd write it up in the little book there.
Yeah. I mean, we all insure our cars, we all insure our houses. So what about our health? I mean, it's really, really important. And just like I said, it's education again. And I just think it's important that we have these conversations on a regular basis. We ensure our contents. Are our contents worth more than we ensure the carpet or the television or whatever? But yet our lives, it's not even for us, it's for what's left if we're not here, for our kids. And that's what's important. And so are we thinking from a selfish point of view, or are we thinking about someone else benefiting? So there is that. There is an issue where I've read it today, I think, where your kids should really pay your life insurance because they're the ones who are going to benefit. Yeah. They should be doing that on a regular basis. Yeah. They should be paying. Yeah, that should happen. But your question is, why doesn't it happen? Is it because we've not even had the conversation? Yeah.
I had that conversation a lot. People say I can't afford it. So what I do is I'll go through their income and I'll go through their outgoings. And I say, right, these are your priority bills, your mortgage, your childcare. I said, how much do you spend on going out on a weekend? About £20. Okay, so you spend about £80.
Where are they going? 20 quid?
Oh, yeah. All right, let's call it more realistic to so more realistic to today's time. Let's say they spend 50 quid on a night out. That's £200 a month. I say to people all the time, the cost of life insurance average is probably like a coffee a day. Now, most people go for Starbucks. They go for a Costa, it's £4. I say you could get a life insurance policy for 20. It might not be everything your family needs, but something's better than nothing.
I really hope that I had somebody talk to me about
Lou's
that.
guilty, by the way. He has coffee every day. Every day in the gym he has coffee.
But no.
Belgium as well, and that's the most expensive coffee.
No,
in the
come
world.
on. I go to the University of Sheffield. Theirs is cheaper. No, but what I was going to say is that, you spoke about you will go through with somebody in terms of their like sometimes, their money and what the outgoings and all that kind of stuff. But some of us, I think there's an embarrassment. I know personally there's an embarrassment about even looking at, the finances, like in a holistic way and saying this is the amount of money I am bringing in. And then now having to start, actually being intentional in terms of actually saying this is how much is coming out or this is how much is coming out. Then you suddenly, I know in my mind I'm thinking, I should do better financially. Maybe I should work more, take a second job or move from where I am. So, and I find sometimes, for me, it's like the pressure of ignorance. It's like even, the money I get paid, I don't even look at it. I don't even look at what we get paid for the work we do. Yeah. I just leave it. It just goes to a joint account and my wife deals with it. You see what I'm saying? I don't deal with it. So what then happens is like my side hustle. That's when, basically my concentration is on. You know what I'm saying? Because you're thinking, at least there's something coming in on a regular basis that can at least deal with some of the stuff.
I know what you mean about not looking. I worked as a teacher for 40 years and I changed a couple of times jobs. And there's one particular period of changing jobs. I didn't get any contributions paid for the pension. And I didn't find it out until about 10 years later. And then for a couple of years, there was no contributions going in, despite the fact I was working. And I had to contact, I think it was Coventry Local Authority where I worked, and basically get them to backdate it. But I had not been looking. And it's not up to them. It's my salary. And I didn't look.
But that's exactly what I'm speaking to. The reality is that there is a certain level of ignorance pertaining to money. We want the responsibility to be on somebody else rather than us. And I think, I know from a mental health point of view is, I think the stress, for me personally, I think money is stressful. And sometimes the conversations we have with people about money puts me under pressure.
Well, I think that's what David said, and I think you're saying as well, Jerome. You have to do a bit of work.
Yeah.
If you don't do a bit of work around it, you will find yourself in positions which could be embarrassing or worse, you're losing money.
Yeah. Again, I think it's a mindset thing. People, like you said, don't like to discuss money. It's just a thing they don't like to discuss it. Me and my partner spoke about it, and I said at the start of the relationship, if we're going to do this, let's be honest about finances, what we're putting aside for this, that and the other. And I think it's probably one of the leading causes of divorces. Yeah, finances.
And when you get divorced,
when you get divorced, exactly.
Let me tell you.
I don't think enough people, are speaking about money, and they don't like to face the reality of it. But it's not something to be ashamed of, because again, money does change, and it can change very drastically.
Yeah, I think people see money as quite vulgar to talk about, and I've never understood why. Because it's a reality of everyday life. We go to work for it. You earn X amount per hour, or you get this salary. So why do people? So it's always been a question to me. Why? I once gave somebody a book. It's called The Trick to Money. Having some, and they said, "Why are you always talking about money?" Da, da, da. But it wasn't. That book is probably the best book I've ever read. It's about how money is just energy, and I was trying to talk to this person and trying to get them to understand how it works. but they just saw the title and suddenly dismissed it. And it was no surprise to me that person ended up had a business and lost the business because they had a business but didn't know anything about money. And I thought, well, that's exactly the reason I was trying to teach you or help you to talk about it. So I see many, many situations where, whether it's to do with property and to do with businesses, where if you, by the way, this is a stat as well, if you ask most business people, who also are sometimes not very literate about money as well, if you ask them what the GP percentage of their own businesses are, they don't know, which is quite astonishing to me because you're in business, so people think you know what you're doing, but no, they don't half the time. They have no idea of the cost and the operational cost. They don't know. So that's why most businesses fail inside the first 2 years. It's because they don't know their numbers. So for me, it's really, really important that as a community, we know the numbers, whether it's to do with your house, your rent, the percentage of what you're being charged for your interest rates, if you early penalties, you name it, across a plethora of the language around money. We have to, as a community, understand every single barometer of what it means. You don't need to be an expert, but you need to understand when somebody comes to talk to you, you have an idea of what they're talking about. And the worst thing I think is going to happen is in the next 20 years, 15 years, there will be the biggest transfer of wealth. I told you this yesterday. There's going to be the biggest transfer of wealth that's ever happened in the history of mankind, because the baby boomers, of which I am one, and we're going to pass away, and that money, that house, that wealth, that asset has to go somewhere. If it goes to people who know nothing about money, guess who's going to take it? The government are going to take it, number one. The accountants are going to take it. The lawyers are going to take it. Jorome will get his share. But if you, sorry, Jorome. But if you have an idea of what they're coming to talk to you about, you're better informed and you have more knowledge. But if you pretend like it doesn't exist, guess what? Somebody's going to pay.
You also said there as well, though, about with that inheritance going down, to our children as such, that the scope for sibling family.
Yes, nothing yet.
Whatever. I mean, we don't need, it happens without money, but you put money into the mix.
I tell you, you hear it now all the time, especially it happens in all communities, so it's not just ours. But what's going to happen is, because there's such, and all what's happened is baby boomers were born at a time where, when they bought properties, inflation enabled that property rose through nothing what they did. It was just they born at a particular time, and the property was double, treble, quadruple, 10 times, whatever. Suddenly, you're left with this money, right? So what's going to have to happen is that money is going to go somewhere, goes into probate. So wills become very important.
Again, we don't like talking about wills, do we?
Wills become very important. Who you're leaving, your letter of wishes, who they're going to. Your kids, some people's families, their kids don't even know what they've got, what they've not got. The fight begins. And suddenly, you're in this maze of, well, what we're going to do. And so it's important to talk about these things early, to have a strategy, to decide, and get everybody comfortable with talking about it. So nobody at the end, we've got pressures on with funerals, that's not the pressure point. It should all be discussed before, if it can be sorted out. So I fear for when the money gets transferred and all the money gets transferred, that there's going to be a tsunami of nonsense going on. And that's what I hear it in the Caribbean every single week about land and this, that and the other, because nobody spoke about it. Well, guess what? It's coming to a town near you.
I agree. A lot of clients that I speak to, they'll say, I've already got my life insurance sorted. I say, okay, perfect. Have you got your will sorted? Have you got your trust sorted? No, I don't. And then again, it's a question of, well, if something does happen, where's the money going? Because what happens is you'll get family members, well, I want X amount, I deserve X amount, and then it goes to court, and you've got court fees, then you've got inheritance tax, And it only takes, again, 5 minutes to get your will sorted, to get a trust sorted. So that money, 400 grand, is going to this person. It's going to that person. There's no debating. And again, it takes a 5-minute conversation, but people just don't, they don't think they have the time. I always hear it, oh, I ain't got time. You do have time. It's just your priorities, they're not where they need to be at during that time. And yeah, like David said, it's something that people don't want to speak about, and unfortunately they need to.
I think there's a stat. Sorry, go on.
No, go ahead.
If the government at the moment, you're allowed to have £23,700 left in your estate, and if you have to go into a nursing home or children, they'll take everything off you up to that point. We've got to understand that those numbers, because they're going to take it off you. Unless you've got care sorted out, the government will take every single penny off you until you're left with 23,700.
45%, is that right?
Sorry?
The 45% they can take.
No, so inheritance tax is you're allowed as a single person 325,000, then they give you 75,000 allowance. As a married couple, it's $1 million. Everything over $1 million, it's 40%. 40%. So in London, that's a different kettle of fish. So in London, people have bought houses or got right to buys in the 70s and 80s, and suddenly they're sitting on £1 million. They didn't earn £1 million, they're sitting on £1 million, and they don't realise that you can't pass it on, because 40%, let's say it's 1.5, 40% of 500 grand is X amount of money, and they come through within 6 months, and you've got to find that money within 6 months. So that means you've got to sell the family home, there's got to be a fight, and all this kind of stuff. So for me, it's really, I read financial press. I'm not a financial advisor, but I read financial press every single day because I want to know what's going on.
So you don't find money vulgar then, do you?
Not at all. I find it quite enjoyable, to be honest with you, because I find it quite... It's one of my favourite subjects, actually. To be honest with you, when I ran a business, I used to sell chemicals, cleaning chemicals. I wasn't actually interested in the chemicals. Yeah. I was interested in how much money I made, right? Yeah. So I literally know nothing about chemicals. People think I do, but I don't. I knew about what I sold, how much margin I made, a GP, net profit, who I paid, all my supplies. So it was just a numbers game for me. I enjoyed numbers. I enjoyed playing numbers at school with nearest to the wall and pennies, making money. So to me, business was a numbers thing. And I found that was my passion, numbers, in terms of just figuring out what they meant. Yeah. And so that was it, really. So I enjoy it, yeah.
I mean, I laugh and joke about that, but, we're talking there about, say, for instance, black business, and I think you've alluded to it already there, which is, we need more black business. We need more people to be out there and sort of engaging in economic activity, etc. Because it's control, isn't it? And power.
Yeah.
And also, I think we need more conversation around, the normalization of finance. It's no longer just a conversation for just to keep.
I think we are naturally entrepreneurial. Naturally, I think we're just a community that's naturally entrepreneurial. I think the confidence has been knocked out of us, and I wanted to see, and I'm disappointed I don't see it, but I wanted to see a group of young people who were just so enthusiastic about doing business. It didn't matter what type of business, and excited to go to work and do things, and that's what disappoints me about Sheffield. I don't see it. I don't see people getting up in the morning at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning and running. It doesn't matter what you do. I don't care what you do, sweep the roads or whatever, but you're into business and into making your destiny is in your own hands. Because ultimately what happens is you go to work for 40 years, and the government tell you what to do, we're playing it safe, da-da-da-da-da-da. And I'm not knocking anybody for that, because that's one aspect, but there should be another group of people who, did something different, and I think in our community the balance is, where is the difference in what we did?
Because you sought to do that, haven't you, Jorome?
Brilliant.
When I took the safe route, but you sought to go out and sort of just take control of it yourself.
Yeah, of course, and it all started from where I wanted to go, and football was the first plan. It didn't work, and I had to look at what else can I do. I'm big on investments. I really want to get into that, but I think when people talk about insurance, they don't think of someone that looks like me. I'm 27 years old, young black man. It probably is a more white-dominated industry, but if we look at the company that we've started to build, it is a lot of young ex-footballers who have come out of the game and thought, I want to do X with my life. And we've got a lot of young black players. We've got a lot of young females as well. And we're sort of starting to change the narrative behind insurance, what an insurance broker looks like. And that was my thing. I really wanted to go into something where I might not be the average looking person within it, but I definitely know I can, if I go into it, I can excel in there. And I think for me, it was all about putting yourself in those different environments where, you might not fit in, but you'll make yourself fit in. You'll change the way people think about certain things. So for me, insurance was that thing.
I'm aware that we have chopped it up quite a lot, and you'll be sitting down basically listening to us just talk about everything and anything. We're probably kind of going to try and open it up in some way, like for those who have questions or comments, because I can see Olivia and I can see Dr. Williams and, Shane at the back, people and Aiden, people who are in that space. What has been your journey, or what is your relationship with money?
I enjoy it.
Enjoy it.
I'm not scared of it. I enjoy it. That's what it's there for. It's not under my bed. I'm not hiding it from anyone. I think it's there to be enjoyed. I go to work and I go and play a little bit. But I think just enjoy it. There's too much stress in the world. For me, I don't do stress. I just live my life. And money is a part of it.
So, because one of the questions I have is, what are the conversations you are having with your children, for those with kids? What are the conversations you are having with your children pertaining to money? Shane.
Hello. With my kids, we're quite open with money and finances. Probably because, as I suppose with some of you, grew up in the 80s and we weren't given any financial literacy advice at school. So stuff to do with credit cards, credit, so on and so forth. So I've had to kind of learn that on myself. So like my son now is at university, so I have regular conversation with him about kind of, if you're getting a student account, make sure you don't mash up your credit and this, that and the other, and make the mistakes that we've done. Another thing to touch on as well, I think historically and culturally, I think finance and money has been something that kind of our grandparents didn't speak about, mainly because they had a mistrust of government, organisations, institutions, so on and so forth. So, I think it's about I suppose it's like anything, it's about each generation doing a little bit better than the generation before. So my grandparents were ones that would kind of keep money hidden. When my nan passed away, we found like old tenors from the 1980s that you can't even change. But it's this generation now kind of having these conversations and being a lot more open, really, because like you say, that's what we go to work for. That is what we're all trying to build into and leave a bit of a legacy and some kind of financial freedom for the generations to come.
Yeah. Sorry, I think that one, what you said, is it is really important to be open with your kids. I've got 3 daughters, and I wasn't a massive fan on saying to them, do chores and I'll pay you for it. But I was honest with them. I said, well, this might be what you do when you leave school. You might get a job in a cafe. But I also taught them, sort of how to make money themselves. I said, well, I could pay you £5 to tidy your room. I wouldn't, because I think you should do that anyway. But I did also say to them, you can look at, you could buy sweets. Kids used to do it when I was in school. Used to buy sweets, go and sell them and make money. and I don't know if kids do that these days. Fortunately for me, the two younger ones did go that way, and they started making little bands and standing at the gate outside the house and just selling them to runners on a weekend, and they came back with 20 quid, and I was proud, because they could have just been like, oh, I don't want to do it, but they did take the initiative to, it was a box of £2 little bands, and they'd made them, and people were just being generous, and it was just because I was honest with them about the different side of money. You can work for it, or you could go out and make it yourself. So yeah, it was a good point that you made.
Yeah, I've been having a conversation with my son, because we got kind of similar brought up to everybody else in terms of money. I remember getting in trouble one time because I got caught with 20 pence and I couldn't explain to my dad where I found it. But what I've been doing with my son is more about mindset and reading. So I get him to read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, The Magic of Thinking Big, What to Say When You Talk to Yourself, to sort of get that understanding of the mindset, because I think your mindset is where money can be sort of gained or limited. So for me, it's really about getting to think differently, but getting to think like entrepreneurs and getting to think like people that aren't scared of money. And you don't always have to be around them people, but you can read and study and develop the mindset. So yeah, that's what I've been sort of doing with my son.
I think, one thing I would sorry for that. One thing I would like to know is, as a community, I mean, you got people like Olivia and stuff, and David probably kind of talk to this, is how often do young people who look like our children have, sit around and have that conversation about money or the normalization of business? Because I don't think my son has ever been to any of those.
I don't think it happens. I don't know, obviously, I'm not in everybody's room, but I get the impression it doesn't happen very much. When some communities, their Sunday dinner, they'd be sitting down talking about business and making plans with the family sat around. That's their conversation. Our conversation, I think, would tend to more be about football, maybe, I don't know. But I'd like to think in one day that the conversation is about business and what we're going to do in the future. Yeah. One of the things I'd like to say is that you mentioned it before about abundance and understanding this world around us. We're taught that everything is scarce. Yeah, we're taught that as a not just a community, as everybody in the country is said, things are tight, things are scarce. Meanwhile, there's a group of people who are enjoying life in abundance. So let's not believe this narrative and this myth that things are so tight. What they really mean is it's not for you. Yeah. So we've all been to nice places and seen, oh, I didn't know this, I didn't know that. Wow. And I just think we've got to understand that the world is abundant. There is lots out there. Yeah. And so let's understand that for one, and understand this. Let's not go around kidding ourselves we say things like, I can't afford it. What that does is, your mind, that's helping your mind to say, I'm aspiring to things that I can't afford, when really you shouldn't be looking at things that you can't afford. Yeah, so just focus on what's in front of you and what you can do, not what you can't do. So don't go around saying to yourself, I can't afford that, it's too expensive. It's not expensive, it's not yours. So we have this attitude and the mentality, and it's from young as well. And it's amazing how much that filtrates into the mind of, it's too expensive, I can't afford it. It's not yours, it's over there. So we have to understand that. Sorry.
One of the things, actually, before we Olivia says something, is I remember we have there's a big group of us at the gym. These are guys who have done well for themselves. Sometimes I wonder why I am part of that group, because simply because everybody seems to be doing so well. For many a time, these guys will invite me. Oh, yeah, we are going out for dinner or something or whatever. It usually fell out on a Friday, but, being 7-day Adventist, I wouldn't go. But eventually, I managed to master that idea, to kind of go and sit with the brethren, and just hear what people who have money talk about. You know what I'm saying? Because I think some of us, we deny ourselves that opportunity to see how other people do life to a point that we are able to glean certain things. You know what I'm saying? Then, funny enough, on a Sunday, I love brunch. You can take me for any other meal, but if you invite me out for brunch, so if I am your guy. The first time I actually decided, I was going to be the guy who foots the bill. Who foots the bill? I had one of the guys afterwards, coming to me and say, "What are you doing?" You know what I'm saying? Because for them, let me tell you, when you go around with these guys to a meal, they are queuing up to see who's going to pay first. You see what I'm saying? For me, I think that day I decided to take out my card and pay. It was because I was leaving earlier and I didn't want, that thing of feeling like, I'm running out of my responsibility. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, like I need to run, run first. The point I'm trying to make is, I think for me, that was a turning point. That was the turning point to say, you know what? I'm not worried about this. This is I think it's part of being, I would say, for lack of a better, being a man amongst men is being able to hold your own. And I think sometimes I know with the sisters, sometimes somebody will be taking out a calculator and saying, "Oh yeah, you can pay this and stuff," and all of you. For us, we become embarrassed about that thing or something. Now we do that. Yeah. We do that whole taking out the calculator and saying, everybody's going to pay this. But I think let's normalize that, being able to go out with other brothers and have that, being able to at least be once in a way, no matter how tight you are, take out your wallet and do something. It's like
a friendly exchange.
Yes,
it's an exchange of money. That's all money is. It's just exchanging. So sometimes, yes, the bill might come and just get it because the next time you go out, the other person will get it. But even if not, it's again the money comes.
That's interesting because I've always had a problem with that. To be honest with you, I've had a big problem with that. And my problem with it is because I recognised when I was young that I had I always wanted to keep the same friends I had. I've always liked to keep my friends from when I was growing up. So because I've always known that I had a certain amount of money and I want to keep my friends and they didn't have the money, I'd always pay. And I enjoy always paying. Yeah, I've always enjoyed always paying because it was just, I had the blessing, I think. So why wouldn't I treat my friends? I've always seen it like that from when I was 20 years old. I would buy, if I'm going to a concert, for instance, I'll buy 20 tickets and not knowing what I'm buying the tickets for. And this, my brother's there, he'll tell you. I'll just say, I know 20 friends or 20 theatre tickets or 20, because I was blessed with something, yeah, and my job is to share. It was not to keep it because that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So I've always had this mentality that if you can come on the brunch next time,
you know what, bro?
Because what I do see is this nervousness sometimes around spending money. Money's only, if you understand money very well, it's only energy, right? It comes and it goes and it flows like this and it flows like this. If you never spend it, it's like this. How do you expect to receive it? It will very rarely come to you if you don't let go of it. Remember, you have to understand that It's a metaphysical thing. I know it's quite deep, but you don't expect to be a millionaire if you don't spend any money. It doesn't work like that. You have to understand that when you end up being as well, there's another stats, you end up being the average of who you spend your time with. Yeah? If you spend your time with people who have no money, don't expect to have a lot of money, right? So you have to broaden sometimes who you go and talk to get ideas and get information and get knowledge and get experience.
But it's also, isn't it? I mean, just picking up on what Longani says there. I mean, my dad used to always say about some friends I had, and he used to go around to their house all the time, and they wouldn't come to my house. And my dad would say, you can't keep going to the man's house if he won't come to yours. And for me, that was always, so my brother and I always say this about lots of things. And that's, for me, like yourself, Longani, sometimes you have to let me pay. You know, it just has to be like that, because there is a sort of self-respect as well, which comes with it as well. I might not be earning much, but I can actually stand a drink or whatever it might be.
Yeah, I think it's expectation. Like what you said, sometimes when you're paying for people, they expect you to do it, which I don't agree with either. But like Lou will, you know, he will tell you, people in the gym that we sit with, they will secretly pay, so no one else knows. And that's what I like. So I'll pay for you. No. And that's the way. And I think that's the way it should be.
I'll give you an example. I was abroad recently, and I was talking to this guy. I'd never met him in my life ever. They'd won an horse race, and I just said, "Oh, congratulations!" Do you know? As I was getting my meal, they said, "Oh, it's all sorted out for you. He's paid for it." Right? I'd never met it. This happens all the time, by the way. If you take the time to just talk to people, you'd be surprised how many blessings you end up getting back just by having the conversation. So these things just happen all the time. People do pay it, and you're right. You don't expect everybody to say he's paying all the time, but it's a thing.
Yeah, it's just, you know, go on.
Olivia.
Wow. Firstly, thank you very much, very much. I'm having a great time. The reason why I'm here today is mainly due to Dave. And that's because I love listening to people who got a lot of successes, especially when it comes to money. And Dave, you summarized it really well. And this is something that we do less in our community. That means listening to people who are high achievers, people who can solve your problem, because it's all about understanding the system. So Dave is successful because he got a better understanding of the system compared to many of us. That's the main reason. And quite often, we're quite conservative. We don't want to listen to those who have achieved. I was fortunate growing in Paris to living with an uncle who was pretty much now a billionaire, but he passed away nearly 15 years ago now. I observed him being a little boy, observing how he dealt with money. And it wasn't because he studied mathematics. I studied mathematics, but no, he wasn't someone who studied numbers, but he knew how to solve problems. Solving problem. That means if you send me to a shop to go and do the shop for the house, I will come, we will sit down and we'll say, okay, how much have you spent? Why have you shopped here and not in this? That's probably a lot cheaper. And I do that even in community with Sadaka. I will take a lot of my workers, we will go to Parfait, to Marco. I will say, okay, remember, the Guinness costs this price here, and here is a less. Then when you go out shopping, be careful. Then we need to do a lot of problem solving in community. And as an issue, money and health, for me, it's a more of a Pan-African issue. I mean, it's everywhere you see people who look like us, we got these issues. Then we also need to understand that it might be our nature. Remember, we live in a place that's not made for us. This is a capitalist system growing up in Europe, where everything is all about money. And it's hard to blame our parents, who have probably come from a place where socialism, just giving away, is our nature. Then money hasn't been, when you look at the history of money, for a lot of our people, that's what I believe anyway. It is not something that we put as number one priority. But our children has to do it differently. We can't do like our mom and dad, because we're living in a city now, in a country, in a space where money matters. And we need to have a different perception of money.
I think one of the things I think everybody should do, find out what is the best place that you perceive to be the restaurant or bar or whatever, and take your kids. Because when you go into these places, you'll realize it might be slightly more than you pay, £2 more than you pay for a coffee, but get them very comfortable in being in those spaces, very comfortable. I would take my kids to the Dorchester, and I'd walk through the Dorchester, which is the famous hotel in London, and I'd say, look around you. Nobody's better than you. You go to the bar, get a drink, whatever, nobody's better than you. If we never go into these spaces and you walk in with your shoulders high and you walk straight through the door, and that's it. Once you do it the first time, the 10th time, the 100th time, it's a piece of cake, right? So sometimes I think what we're afraid of is going to spaces and those kind of spaces, and you meet the most incredible people because they have conversations and they talk about money. By the way, they talk about money, talk about things, and before you know, you've left talking about football and whatever. So I think it's really important when you get the opportunity to go into really lovely spaces.
Yeah, I agree. Steve, I'm sure everyone knows Steve Harvey. He said, do it once, book a first-class flight, do it once, pay the extra £100, whatever it might be. Whatever. You know what I'm saying?
He had said £20 nights out.
£20 nights out.
I wish he was.
That, whatever it might be, just £200, £300.
Yeah.
But if you do it once, your mind will change when you're in that bigger seat and you're getting better service. You'll never want to go back to what you was doing before, maybe, and you'll find ways to get that again.
Let me tell you,
I'm going to look around. Then you go to some cheap places, isn't it? No,
I think
David, I went with you when we played squash a few times.
Oh yeah.
And I've been going to the Sheffield Highland Squash and Tennis Club for years, and I knew no one. I used to sit in that the sort of like cafe area there, and all these people were there, and I didn't know a soul. David comes for the first time to play me. He beat me as well. And he walks through, and it's David. I really did feel like, what am I doing here?
I think that's because because I'm from Sheffield, I would go all over the place. I kind of know people in lots of communities, and so you become very sociable as well. So you talk to everybody, pretty much everybody. So because what I've found is by talking to many people, that's where I've got the best opportunities. You
shouldn't have just come in there and known everybody and then beat me.
Right. I tried not to. I tried not to win.
You tried not to.
I tried not to win. But one of the things I say, I've got lots of sayings, a million sayings. Try to always go where they treat you the best. Right. Try to always in your life go to places where they treat you the best. You'll find the experiences you'll never want to go to. You never get rubbish service. You go where it's nice and everybody treats you great. And there's many places in Sheffield where you pay a little bit more, but they treat you really good. Why would you want rubbish service? Why would you want people who snarl at you every day and whatever? Why? I've never understood that. So go where they treat you the best.
Do we have any more people who want to just contribute in any way they'd like
Can
to?
I ask a question?
Yeah.
I was going to ask regarding, as a young person and I've started my own business, how do I go about negotiating like a rate that I know I can provide, but it's not like they don't see it? How do I negotiate like contrast?
So I started my own business when I was 19, and very quickly I started charging a lot more than what like most other people in the industry was doing. And the biggest thing was confidence. Like if you know someone else that's charging, for example, there was a guy in one of the mentorships I was in, and I was a fitness coach, and he said, "Aidan, I'm charging £400 a month, and I'm a crap coach, basically." Like when he said this, I just thought, I'm charging $150, and he's saying he's charging $400, but he's not getting like amazing results or like, because sometimes you'll compare your work to other people and think, I can't charge because they're doing so much more than me, they charge whatever. But oftentimes, if someone's even having a conversation with you, it's because they want to work with you and not someone else. So, name your price. That's like the only thing I'd say.
What I would say to that, similar to what Aidan said, I've run a company for 40 years, and I knew when I started the company that we weren't the cheapest. I knew, in terms of a scale of 1 to 10, I knew we was a 9. And we're only selling, and my brother's there, we're selling cleaner materials, but I never wanted to be the cheapest. I was a 9. Okay? What I then did was realize that if I'm going to make a lot of money in a relatively short time, over a long period of time, I need to charge a lot of money. And then I went to people who I knew had the money, right? In too many times, I think what happens in our community, we go for the lowest common denominator, and our people won't pay this. Well, I won't sell to them. We're talking about business, remember. It's not a service, it's business. So what I found in life, and people come to me all the time and say, what should I charge? And I say, charge what you feel you're worth. Don't charge under your worth, and then go and find the business. Especially today, you've got the world at your feet, at your oyster, world's your oyster, in terms of social media and whatnot, or you can jump on a train and get to Manchester, Leeds, whatever, but charge your worth. Don't undersell yourself, because if you do, you're going to go to work every day frustrated. I should have got paid more, I've not made any money. That's a miserable life, I think, to work all day and make no money. That doesn't make sense, to be honest with you.
To David's point, actually, to deal with your earlier, David was saying, he's like, oh, you've been busy. I've been seeing you, kind of doing stuff. I'm a filmmaker like yourself, photographer and all that kind of stuff. And one of the things that has been, and I think you run the risk of hating your community, because there is a running joke, especially in sort of like the church space. I remember somebody calling me and saying, like I told you, I'm a 7-day Adventist. Somebody said, oh, do you have the Adventist rate? I'm like, what the heck? What is it? What is that? You know what I'm saying? There is this thing that we do, especially for those of us who have frequented the church, is when people don't want you to pay, they will call it a ministry. When in fact, what you are, you're a business. And like David put it so well, you charge them what you're worth. And one thing I'm finding out is also you have to be confident enough to walk away. You see what I'm saying? Because many of us, we are guilt-tripped into doing things that we end up hating. Like sometimes people will come to you and offer you something that's ridiculous. Or you told them how much you are going to charge them. Then they do that whole thing that our people do. And before you know it, you're like giving it away. One thing I'm in the habit of doing now is I'll tell people, how much I charge. And if I hear them emming and ahhing, sometimes you over pitch, fully knowing how much your bottom line is. And I think you shouldn't apologize for that, because I think we have done a lot of things. That's why some of us, we end up moving from what we know is our business. We end up giving up because we have been, people have made us give up. You're like,
you get tired.
Yeah, you get tired of constantly, kind of being on the back foot, because you're constantly saying, you know what, I don't want to have that conversation with that brother. You know what I'm saying?
But what I would say to that is, to charge your worth,
yes,
you've got to know your worth.
That's it.
Yeah. So that comes down to having a confidence. Some people call it arrogance, confidence, overconfidence, but you've got to have that in your armour to say, that's what I'm worth. I'm walking away. And you've got to have that ability to say, I'm walking away. Because round every no means near to a yes. So round the corner, and my job was sales, so I had this mentality anyway, but there's somebody who wants your services, but is waiting for you to phone them or call them. Your job is to go and find that person. But if you're always doing all this other work and you're tired, you're never going to find that person. So there's somebody waiting for you to pay you 300 quid an hour but you've got to find that person. That's the trick.
That's it.
Sorry.
One thing, actually, sorry. One thing I learned from kind of, I was listening. I spend a lot of time kind of listening to these young cats about, how they process their stuff or how they do their thing. And one thing I think I was listening to something Aiden was saying about, and he had planned this thing, and also he was talking about how much money he wants to make within a certain period of time. And I'm thinking, this is genius, because some of us, we just exist at the bottom line. We never think, I want to make such an amount of money. We don't even think that. I was talking to somebody recently and I'm saying, I've never had more than 3 zeros in my account. You know what I'm saying? I'm thinking, well, how do I make sure that I have 4 zeros, 5 zeros, 6 zeros? You know what I'm saying? And if you start looking at things that way, again, your mindset kind of shifts because you are thinking, don't be afraid to be ambitious. You know what I'm saying? And many of us, because we didn't have that reference. My father worked for himself, but he died poor. And actually, we're talking about wills and all that kind of stuff. In the part of the world where I am from, when somebody dies, suddenly you find you got relatives you never knew you had. And suddenly, I didn't know I had uncles, suddenly they came in and took him for everything he had, even clothes. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, which goes back to, we have raised that today, haven't we?
Yeah.
And I know yesterday when we were talking, David, I found it really instructive to actually think more carefully again about, being older, the sort of conversations to have with family. So there's all these different phases where the importance of talking about money and thinking about money, how we best use money, how we use it in a way, for instance, that, we don't put ourselves in positions where, it's putting us in debt, but at the same time that we're able to make something of it as well. And being mindful of the time now, so to act like a facilitator. But is there anyone else who would like to say something before I ask Jorome and David just to give us a final word?
My niece at the back.
Hi, everybody. You might have spoken about this, came a bit later, but did you talk about sending money back home?
Oh, yeah. No, you mean the black tax?
Yes. Did you guys talk about that a little bit?
No, we haven't spoken about that. And can I just ask, I'm going to ask Lungani first. Come on, Lungani. Back home.
Of course, there's this unspoken thing. For many of us who came from the immigrants, we came, there's this unspoken thing that once you come to this part of the world, you have a bunch of people back home who are waiting for you to support them through everything. And so I remember having a conversation with Kambinga, and Kambinga is like, oh, dude, you know that that's the first time I heard about black tax. So black tax is a name that's given to this money you send home, to support family and relatives, and sometimes deservingly. I'm not saying that it's a responsibility that you have to your family. And I think you should look after your family if you have the means. But then somehow there is this expectancy, even if you don't have. And when I was talking to Kambinga was saying, oh, you know what, I have to, send some money home before he even factored in what his outputs were in this. So you suddenly find a lot of our people here being sick, dying here because of the stress-related, illnesses, because they are sending money home, and yet their lifestyle here doesn't reflect that they are here. You see what I'm saying? That stress that we send money home, but here we live like paupers. And then I have people back home, 10 properties, which they will never live in. You know what I'm saying? And cars, which other people are driving. You know what I'm saying? And yet here, they're struggling. So I guess
that was
yeah.
perfect. So my question had to do with that. In what are your guys' thoughts? Because especially there's ongoing pressure for the second generation born here to start sending money back home to family members, or to start building houses and to start sending cars back home. For that idea of maybe one day when I go, I'm going to have a place. I want to get your thoughts.
Yeah, well, I'll just answer that quick. No, I'll give a thought myself. I think a lot of it's got to do with the nature of the relationships you've got with your relations. And when you have good relations with anyone, anywhere, then you are much more likely to feel as if that money which you're sending back, you can trust that money. It's money which is to a person who is going to do, not wants it, but they can do something with it which actually fits in with where you are as well. And we've all got those horror stories of money's been sort of like misused, etc., etc. And it's really hard. I know when I remember going back one time to Jamaica, and I went to my dad's house, and my auntie was sending money back. And I went to go and see her in London, and she said to me, how's the house? And the house, nothing was going on with it. So I sort of fudged it and said, oh yeah, the house is all right. She said, no, tell me good. And I had to go and tell her good, and then she went into all the, oh my God, I haven't. And what it was that she felt as if she'd been abused. And that, from a sort of like a relationship point of view, is really a hard one. But there were other people she was sending, and we were sending money back to, where that wasn't the case. You would go there, and they would greet you, and they'd thank you and say, thank you for the little money you send me. And that, to my mind, is about relationships and that nature of relationships which you have with people. Sorry to interrupt.
No, I had one last. I was born here. My parents went back to the Caribbean in 1986, 85, 6. And so I built my dad a house in the Caribbean, Jamaica, so he would always phone me every week. Send money come. So I felt that pressure. I felt that pressure. Even though I'm working in Sheffield and building a family and whatever, I would be. But that was a good relationship because I wanted to do that. It was a relationship with my mum where it was something I wanted to do for them. And so, but I still felt the pressure, right? Every Sunday night I get a phone call, money run out, and I think, oh God.
Did you get hello first?
Pardon?
Did you get hello first?
I got hello. So, but I do understand that black tax and all that. I've heard many stories about that. Many footballers talk about that same thing. When they've got money, come from a village, they're sending money back, and you become a target then. So it happens in normal life, and it happens in every life aspect. But mine wasn't a bad experience, to be honest with you.
Yeah, sorry. So mine's a bit opposite to you. So when I started doing quite well, my relationship with my dad is okay in terms of we can sit down together, we get on, but I started looking at it kind of like you didn't do enough for me growing up, you wasn't present. But then when I started doing well, you was asking for things, and for me it was a little bit like an entitlement of just because you brought me here and I now owe you something. I've never had the outlook on I owe you something. Now, if it was my mom, yeah, because she raised me, she did things that she didn't have to do to get me to where I am today. So I've always been a little bit torn between sending money to people who expect it. Again, I think it's the expectation thing I spoke about earlier. I think, especially in the black community, I think a lot of the time it's family. And to me, that doesn't mean an entitlement. Family is, for me, people that have helped you and they've raised you and they've been there for you, they've supported you. So I understand sometimes it's a bit of pressure, like what you said, to provide for the people that want providing for. Your relationship with your dad's obviously a good one, so you would do it. But I think sometimes the expectation of doing it for people that might not have let's say, deserved it, it's a little bit of a difficult one.
Actually, before we finish, so I get this call. You know, there are certain calls you shouldn't even take. So I get this call, and I recognize the person, you know, I was talking to their side, and suddenly they are telling me stuff about. It's as if, you know, there was a conversation back home about how rubbish of a son I am. And you get that. Sometimes, you know, people, they do that. It's like, because there's this assumption that, you know, the very people you support back home are your greatest champions. I remember saying to my siblings, you know, sometimes it would be nice to kind of somebody to send me a WhatsApp message and say, how are you doing? You know, how is your health? You know what I'm saying? Instead of every WhatsApp message you get is, so-and-so is in hospital and they need money. Or somebody is not well and they need money. So I get, the roof mashup. It's true. I get this call. And somebody who's not even related to me, somebody I knew, they know my family. And suddenly they are telling me all this stuff. You haven't been good to your family. You haven't been this and that. I was so upset. But the point I'm trying to make is, I understand sometimes as a community when we say keep your business to yourself. Even like, to a point like even for those of us who go back home and sometimes go home unannounced, because sometimes what we do is we'll tell everybody that we are coming and people are waiting. People, I kid you not. I kid you not, people are waiting. The last time I went home, I had people who knew me and I couldn't even know. I didn't even know the people. And the conversation usually goes as this. Celia probably will attest to this. It's like, you have any money for drinks? And you see what I'm saying? So it's never like, some people, you know, like, if they say if you have been friends with somebody, probably for more than a year or two, and they've never invited you to their house, you are not friends. You know what I'm saying? You are not friends. And so, but then somehow, because we as a people, we are a collective people, you know, and I do understand that. But sometimes I think the more we have these conversations about stuff, about life in general, maybe we will do better. Maybe when Aiden's generation kind of are in charge, as they will be, you know, the Jeromes and stuff. I mean, these guys, I mean, if they continue to do things like we are doing, Olivier, Don, David, they'll be cooked. You know what I'm saying? So there has to be a better way. So
can I ask David and Jorome just to give us a final word, and then we'll sort of.
Can I ask
you want
one
to
question?
Go on. You want to?
Okay.
All right, it'll come this final word.
Go on.
Sorry, I have one final question. So, from everything you said today, how do we keep the black pound in the black community, or how do we start creating a sustainable black economy?
Personally, I think we've first of all got to have many, many more of these conversations. I think we encourage young people to start businesses, to be more risk takers. I think we see the world as abundant in spite of all its difficulties and challenges. And I think if everybody else can do it, we are as good as anyone, and we can do stuff, great stuff. But if we don't create a climate of entrepreneurship or business or forward thinking, then it's never going to happen, because who's going to start the conversation? You know, so it's important that this, like I said, this, I've been around for 40 years, it's the first time ever I've ever gone to a meeting and they're talking about finances and money, and we haven't even touched on the subject. There's lots more to talk about. But I would love it to carry on, because you've got to create a culture of it's okay to talk about it. That's really important to me. And I'm so pleased. Thank you guys for doing it. And when it first came up, it came on my Instagram, and I saw it was happening, and I said, I want to be at this event. I want to be on this panel. And I saw Lungani, and he said, actually, Dave, somebody's dropped out. We'd love you to come and talk. I said, please.
No. It wasn't even like somebody dropped out.
Sorry?
We had spoken about this, and we had said, you know, the only person, we always ask Dave, I'm sure he's tired of this.
No, I'm not tired of this subject.
So when I saw Dave,
no.
Yeah, when I saw Dave, I was like, you know what? Because Dave's the one who mentioned it. I was like, dude, we were thinking about you, but we always ask you.
No, this is my favorite subject of all subjects, because I want our community to understand and be empowered and go forward, because I hate the idea, we're only here for 70 years, 50, 60, 70 years, people of my age. We start at 20, we finish at 60, 70, whatever, and we're gone. I like legacy. I like legacy and the idea that we've left something else for other people to pick up the baton and move on with. So it's really, really important for me that we understand business and this kind of stuff, enterprise. So if I talk to a young person, I'm always talking business. I always want to talk business. I don't really, history and business, there's not many other subjects that I'm really bothered about, economics obviously, but this is for me the number one subject, because I like to be in charge of my own destiny. I like to make sure that I can wake up in the morning when I want to, I can go to work when I want to, every single day I'm in charge of my day. Nobody else is in charge of my day, and I want other people to be in charge of their day similarly.
Yeah, just adding on to that, I think one of the biggest things is to share what you're doing. You know, you said, how do we keep it within the black community? And I think one of the biggest things, and I'm a big believer in, is you learn something and then you share it. Whether that's with your friends, especially the younger people. I think one thing that maybe isn't done enough is passing on those teachings, you know, passing on that success, teaching other people how to do it. You know, don't keep it to yourself. I'm a big believer in that. You know, if you learn something, share it with everyone else, because it doesn't mean they're going to take it from you. It's abundant to everyone. So yeah, I think one of the biggest things is, if you achieve something, if you're learning something, go and teach it to the next person so they can do it as well, because it only takes, and I'm saying this from experience, one person to sort of break the mold for you to then start seeing things differently.
And I think one thing that David did say in the previous conversation, I don't know if you remember this, he said why, because I remember asking him, why does he keep on, why he could have retired, and that was sort of the idea. And he said, you know, he wants to keep the foot in the door to be able to pass information to the younger generation. And I thought, man, if I could say that, to me, I think that would be, it's not only legacy, because I think certain things have to outlive us for us who are grown. If you are not building anything that will outlive you, then you haven't really lived. You know what I'm saying? And I think when we start working at that, then our meetings with our children, we are looking at ourselves as a business entity, because a lot of people in the States do this thing where families will gather and they have a constituted, you know, kind of sort of like a strategy and stuff about family business. Where is everybody at? What are they doing? What are they building? What do they need help with? And I think when we start looking at, you know, at our young ones in that vein, like, where can I assist? Where can I be of help? You know what I'm saying? And that's the thing I'm learning. It's until recently that I sat down with my son. My son has started first year at university, studying same thing I do, content creation and film. And he said to me, and this comes from a kid, he says, for his first project, they asked him, what is he going to do? He said, Dad, I was thinking of doing something around 2051 Media. That's my production company. and which he is my business partner. That's my youngest one. You see what I'm saying? So, and somebody mentioned something recently. Say there's a filmmaker. The smallest thing you film, put your name to it, directed by Chim. Because in doing that, as you film more stuff, as you accumulate more, your name is out there. You see what I'm saying? So don't be embarrassed don't be anonymous in what you say. Stop being that thing where we do that fake humility that we do as a black community. I'm trying, I'm struggling like everybody. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Stand up, and tell people you are. Clive Clark. I remember asking Clive, how are you doing? Clive says, I'm fantastic. See what I'm saying? So it's a mindset. You're definitely a mindset. And I think the more we teach our young people not to do that, everything is hard, you know what I'm saying? It's difficult.
Lungani, thank you for ending us on that note, which is fake humility.
I'm guilty of that.
Seriously, it's been fantastic.
It's been fantastic.
When we started at 7 o'clock and before that, I know Lungani and I were both very, very sort of like anxious about how it would be. I don't think we needed to be anxious at all because we've been blessed with two fantastic guests, Jorome and David. And I've spoken to David many, many times before. I'm starting to speak to Jorome now in the last year or so and learning so much. And that point you made about we learn from one another. Yes. And I think that's what we've just got to keep on doing. Keep talking and keep learning. And Chim, can I say thank you very much. That coffee we had back in the summer, before you went back to Nigeria there, that month when you were in Nigeria, I was thinking to myself, if Chim doesn't contact me, I'll be all right. But she contacted me as soon as she got back. Thank you very much for that. It's been a fantastic opportunity, and you've done brilliantly with this week. And I know it's for the rest of the month, isn't it? So can we give a round of applause for Chim and all the work she's done? And then a round of applause to David and to Jorome.
And Jorome.
And you must listen to Trims and Talks. And if you haven't been on Trims and Talk yet, you need to be putting your hand up.
Yeah, actually, we are looking for a guest for the 14th. Which, the day after tomorrow. So,
can I
anybody who doesn't mind having...
I've been on Trims and Talks, and I'd sort of say Lungani and Donald, because they've created a platform it's about mental health and about our community and what we go through. And I think it's a fantastic platform. It's got some amazing guests on. So I just want to keep listening to their Trims and Talks, because our community, we're talking and we need to talk and to get things out there. So I'd like to say thank you to Donald and Lungani. And in fact, so round of applause for these two guys. And also, this is the first time I met Jorome, to be honest with you, today, and I must admit I am super, super impressed with the 27-year-old kid who's doing his own business and doing fantastically well. Because I can tell you this, I started when I was 26. I wasn't as good as him at 26. So I know what the future holds for you. You're going to be fantastic, so well done. No. Yeah. Well done.
Yeah, sorry. I just want to say, Donald, Lou, thank you again. Amazing turnout, giving me the opportunity to come and speak to you again, like yourself. And yeah, the Trims and Talks is amazing. I think, when did we do it? A few months back now, weren't it?
It was more than that.
It was longer.
It's been a while, yeah.
But if you remember, it was the first time I spoke about my mental health.
Yeah.
The first time I'd ever openly spoke about it, and you gave me that platform. So yeah, I just want to say thank you to both of you.
And so we are waiting for Aiden next time. You can speak to us both.
Thank you. That's all right.
On Tuesday.
Thank you, everyone. So yeah, you can talk amongst yourself. We have the space till 9 o'clock. So just mingle amongst yourself and look out for our programs around as well. Thank you.